thank you all for being a part of our 6th annual Fatherhood Conference. This is the 3rd session of our conference, and the title has been Responsible Fathers, Lifeline During COVID-19. And as you all know, we have been impacted, the whole world has been impacted as a result of the COVID, and fathers and families especially have been significantly impacted because of many, many challenges. And our whole conference committee has been planning a conference to speak to the many challenges that fathers and families are facing in order to connect the resources and supports to our fathers and families to build a better community. Our previous workshops have included employment and childcare and mental health and food insecurities, civic engagement and education. Our previous keynote speakers have been Reverend
Franklin Richardson.
I'm muted. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Reverend Dr. Franklin Richardson, and also James Rodriguez from Phoenix, Arizona. And today it's a continuation of our efforts and opportunities to bring us all together to see how we can better impact the lives of our fathers, our communities, and our families. We're very happy to have you join with us. We're looking forward to today's presentation. I'm going to bring forward now Tom Kelly, who's going to give us some housekeeping rules, and then he'll introduce our facilitator for this morning.
Perfect. Thank you, Frank. Yeah, my name is Tom Kelly, and myself and Matthew Sprang are honored to be, we're fathers, and we're honored to be helping out with this series of conferences. Matt and I are a little ahead of the curve Zoom-wise, so we jumped in the boat and started rowing with all this with the committee. So I saw in the chat somebody said that their video was disabled. There's controls at the bottom of your Zoom screen that says mute and start and stop video. You can turn on your video or off your video and you can listen, but we're muting everybody, and we are asking you to remain on mute so the speakers can be heard clearly. We're going to be having a survey at the end where it's very brief, probably 3 or 4 questions, and it will help to inform what the conferences are going to be like going forward. We have some plans in the works, so please fill out the survey. There's going to be presenters after the keynote speaker. There's going to be 3 presentations of various kinds, and at the end of each of those, we're going to have an opportunity to take questions from everybody. So if you have a question, put it in the chat and it'll get to the right place. I think that's it. If there's anything else, Matt, let us know.
No, there's not. I believe everyone can now start their video. If anyone still has a problem, please just mention it in the chat and I'll try to help you out.
Yeah, perfect. Now I'm going to throw it over to our host and MC for today, Donnie Simmons.
Thank you so much, Tom. I really appreciate it. Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's great to see all of your wonderful faces today. And so why are we here? We assemble every year, and with this very unique format, we're going to be seeing each other a lot more in services or in service for fathers. Fathers in need. Fathers who need to be empowered. Fathers who need to be connected in a broad range in order to be effective at home. And in doing so, that is why we are all gathered here today. So what I'd like to do is I want to share some information with you. And what I'm going to attempt to do is to share my screen, and I have my experts in Tom and Matt to make sure that I'm on course here. So everyone can see this screen, correct? Okay.
Yep.
Yes, yes.
And everyone can see this screen that says the importance of fathers in the healthy development of children. This particular document was produced by the United States Department of Health and Human Services. And what I want to do is just read you a quick caption, because I think we need to be reminded that what we're doing here has research, it has science connected to it, and we should not take these things for granted. So here in this caption that says fathers and their impact on children's well-being. A noted sociologist, Dr. David Papineau, is one of the pioneers of the relatively young field of research into fathers and fatherhood. Quote, fathers are far more than just second adults in the home, he says. Involved fathers bring positive benefits to their children that no other person is as likely to bring. I think this particular adage is so important in the work that we do and the continuation of our connection to our population. And the second item I want to share with you is from a newsletter. From a newsletter. It's called Fatherly. And let me just scroll down a second. And it's entitled The Science of Dad and the Father Effect. In short, this reads, the impact of fatherhood is not subjective or unknown, but an objective and documented phenomenon. Kids who grow up with a present, engaged dad are less likely to drop out of school or wind up in jail compared to children with absent fathers and no other male caretakers or role models. They're more likely to have high-paying jobs and healthy, stable relationships when they grow up. They also tend to have higher IQ scores by the age of 3 and endure fewer psychological problems throughout their lives when their fatherhood is taken seriously. So I want to use that as the backdrop for how we move forward and how we are engaging this population. So without further ado, for opening remarks, we are privileged to have with us once again one of the perennial supporters of the Fatherhood Conference. So let us welcome the Honorable Thomas M. Roach, Mayor of the City of White Plains.
Thank you. Good morning, Donnie. And I'm getting used to you as the moderator, and so it's good to see you again. I want to thank everybody who's participating, both those who are presenting, those who put it together, and those who are attending, because this is a very important issue. I was thinking about my own dad and actually thinking of Mayor Rainey, because my father, he had his regular job, but he was one of those dads that had a lot of side jobs, right? So he was always up to something. One of his jobs that was to clean up a supermarket parking lot, went back in the days when they were closed on Sundays, and he would bring me and my brothers, and I'm the oldest. I must have been 5 or 6, so I don't know how much help we were, but I now realize we loved it because we were with him. It wasn't so much what we were doing, but that we were with him. And I was on a Zoom call with Mayor Rainey, and a young individual joined in on the Zoom call, because that's one of the joys of Zoom, is that you get to still be with your family, and made me think of, hey, kids can come to work with their dads too sometimes. So I want to thank Frank Williams and our Youth Bureau, who does such a great job for us. I want to welcome you all here today, because I'm going to say we're virtually in White Plains, because normally we'd be at the county center. So we're honored to be joined by so many individuals, but I am one of my pleasant duties this morning is to introduce the President Pro Tem of the New York State Senate, and our senator here in White Plains, along with Senator Mayer, who I understand is also on the call. We're very fortunate in White Plains. Andrea Stewart-Cousins is a longtime political colleague and friend, and I've known her since the first day I got into politics, and she has been served in so many different capacities and served so well. And we recently had a big change where we now have a supermajority in the Senate, and sometimes when something happens that you want to have happen, you only can pray that it does happen, and we have that. And I'm so pleased to introduce the wonderful Andrea Stewart-Cousins.
Thank you so much, Mayor Roach. I am privileged to be able to really represent White Plains. Senator Mayer and I share you, we are so thrilled to have so many great partners in government, you being one, and certainly being a great father in so many places. I've seen you with your kids, and you know, that's what it's all about. So you do take your kids to work. I can testify to that. But and of course Frank, who has I don't know. I think he really exemplifies what youth bureaus should do, and you know how males can be and must be so much a part of you know our children's lives, and I'm sure Frank, you are a dad to thousands and thousands and thousands of kids, and then when you bring in so many men who are doing incredible things and with Grandpas United. I mean, there's so many ways that you've been able to facilitate the presence of strong, positive male figures into the experiences of our youth is really commendable. And I know I see my good friend, Mayor Rainey, who I get to hang out with in Peekskill because he knows that I represent a lot of places, not technically Peekskill, but because you have my son, another great father, Kevin Cousins there, who is there with his kids and so on and so forth. I get to hang out with Mayor Rainey a lot. And I think not the last time, but one of the times we were campaigning together, you had your baby girl with you. So I love people who not only, you know, talk the talk, but walk the walk. And we know under ordinary circumstances, parenting is tough. And we know that under ordinary circumstances, you know, trying to make sure that everybody who's in the home is doing what they need to do. You know, nobody has a manual or a handbook, so we do the best we can. But we know we have to bolster our fathers, because we know, especially during this time of COVID, a responsible father who is struggling, whether it's with rent or food insecurity or trying to figure out how many jobs or how to maintain the family in a way that supports everyone. This is a really, really, really difficult time. So I commend you for creating this forum where we wed, you know, the pandemic of our time, at least one of them, with strong men in Westchester. And I'm here as someone who was privileged to know my grandfather, who raised 3 kids after his wife died in childbirth. My dad, who again, I always say, World War II veteran, segregated army, so came back without the benefits, but supported his family, my brother and I and my mom, and my kids. I have 2 sons, both of whom are great fathers, and a great son-in-law. So I know I am in a privileged place, but I'm also in a place where I respect and will, on behalf of the Senate, and I'm going to introduce my good friend, Senator Mayer. We get it. We are focused on supporting the important work that you do. I've been able to bring money to the Youth Bureau and so on and so forth, but we are here to support the work that you do, and you have allies in the Senate and frankly in the legislature. We don't have a supermajority for nothing, and we know what's important. So thank you for giving me this moment. And I will introduce again my good friend, Senator Shelley Mayer, who you know, is a legend in her own time and in her own way. That Tom said, I've had a lot of roles, Shelley's had a lot of roles, and every one she's performed in exceptional fashion. She's a true public servant. And during this time and all, she's our chair in the Senate of Education Committee. And we know what that has been like in this time of COVID. And Shelley has managed to hear all the voices and be the advocate that she needs to be, the support that she needs to be, the informed, you know, public servant that will help during this COVID time to make sure that kids are educated. So I introduce to you my good friend, Senator Shelley Mayer.
Thank you so much. Thank you, We call her Leader Stewart Cousins, and we're very, very proud that she's our leader, and we all should be. It's really a tribute to her, and I'm very blessed to have her as a friend as well. But it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Frank, and thank you so many of my friends and colleagues in government and in the world of taking care of people that are here, and certainly our friends from the world of the faith community. Thank you also for being here. You know, this would be a fascinating conference anyway, but COVID makes it a whole new day for parents and particularly for fathers. As chair of the education committee, as the leader said, I deal day in, every day with parents who are struggling with helping their children through this time and struggling themselves through the potential loss of job, the need to be home with remote learning, the potential loss of a percentage of their income or health insurance, and the health impacts of COVID, which have had disproportionate impact, as we know, on communities of color and certainly our poorer communities. And both Andrea and I represent and share in New York, the cities of Yonkers, New Rochelle, and White Plains. And we also have other urban communities that are truly struggling through this time. So today is such an important opportunity to talk about the challenges that fathers face and how we can do better in serving them through this time. There's a few bright spots, not so many, in COVID, and I think all of our hearts feel very heavy. But there's a fascinating study by the Harvard Graduate School of Education that shows that fathers, 52% of fathers report children are talking to them about things that are more important. And 51% of fathers report they're getting to know their children better. And these are some of the impacts of staying home with our children, which for many fathers was not the normal course of business. But because of remote learning, because of hybrid learning, and because of everyone trying to juggle 20 things at once, some fathers are having the benefit that many mothers knew of this remarkable conversation between children and their parents. I think we want to support fathers, as Andrea said, in every way we can through this challenging time, both in the work context, in the health world, certainly in the world of education. I can't imagine a harder time to be a parent of a young child or a child in school than what we have lived through since March. And so my hat's off to all of you, those of us who don't have young children anymore. We try never to forget the challenges of raising a young boy or girl in this environment, giving them hope and resilience when our own faith has been challenged as well. So our hats are off to all of you who are participating. We know there's work to do. As Andrea said, we are very committed to being partners and fighters on behalf of those that jump into fatherhood and provide leadership as you all do. So it's really my honor to be here and to listen and to make sure that we respond to the needs that you identify and do the best we can as leaders in New York State. So thank you all for being part of this. I think my next task is to introduce the introducer of the speaker, our fantastic friend, Mayor Rainey, who I share Andrea's. We just got a special bond with Mayor Rainey that is deeper than just being another colleague. But the next speaker is Tuesday McDonald, the Executive Director of the City of Peekskill Youth Bureau. And just a shout out to the youth bureaus all over. Something we should replicate. And I have tried to take the position that we should replicate in every urban community. We should have a vibrant youth bureau like they have in White Plains and they have in Peekskill. Credit to you for doing that. And with that, I will turn it over to Tuesday.
Thank you so much. And again, we want to thank our Senator Mayor, Senator Andrew Stewart Cousins, and also Mayor Tom Roach for being with us this morning. Thank you. My task today is to introduce my friend as well. Mayor Andre K. Rainey was born in Peekskill, New York, but has lived in Germany and Las Vegas, Nevada, as his father, Robin Reed, proudly served in the United States Air Force. Mayor Rainey successfully ran for council in 2015. He then successfully ran for mayor in 2017 and was reelected in 2019 and is currently serving his second term. Mayor Rainey is a millennial, entrepreneur, owner, and president of New Moves Entertainment, which he founded in 2010. As a former councilman, he was the youngest to serve and is the youngest mayor to serve in the city of Peekskill. Mayor Rainey believes in developing strong relationships with government and public schools, local businesses, as well as county, state, and federal agencies to move the community forward. He understands the importance of collaboration and the power of partnerships in building a vital community with an opportunity for all. His primary focus in running for office is to protect our children and young adults and providing them with a variety of educational resources and opportunity. Mayor Rainey has always worked tirelessly for our future, our youth. While working for the children, Mayor Rainey is a dedicated father to his children, Zalon, Zanaya, and Zaneta. His children are his motivation, and he will always receive the Best Dad Award from them. He is also an amazing father figure to the youth of Peekskill. Yes, they love him. As mayor, he's able to ensure the youth of the city take full advantage of everything they're granted to have. He continues to open doors for children, millennials, and our seniors in Peekskill. But one of the proudest moments under his tenure was when Mayor Rainey was able to secure the $10 million downtown revitalization grant in 2019, among $6 million in other grants his first term. Mayor Rainey continues to value the needs in the city of Peekskill: housing, homelessness, environmental issues that need to be addressed, litter and clean parks, and code enforcement. Mayor Rainey is a man on the move. We are proud to have him as Mayor of Peekskill, and we are proud to not only call him friend and such an amazing father figure and father to his 3 children. I present to some and introduce to others the Honorable Mayor Andre K. Rainey.
Mrs. McDonald, thank you sincerely for that wonderful introduction. I want to thank Mr. Frank Williams and everybody who helped organize this event today. Thank you for allowing me to be able to speak. Before I start saying anything, I have to give a shout out to my children because they'll kill me if I don't. So special shout out to Xylon, Zanaya, and Zenaida. I also want to thank my mother and my father. And I also want to thank Miss Tuesday McDonald. She's the one who really introduced me into wanting to be a father figure or being there for the kids. My very first job, I was about 14 years old, I believe, right here in the city of Peekskill. I was working for Miss Tuesday McDonald. We was running a summer youth program, and we were providing lunches for the children in low-income housing areas throughout the entire summer, Monday through Friday during the summer months. And every Friday we would take the kids on a different trip, whether to the movie theater or to the playground in the park, just doing different things for the kids during the summer to give them something to do and keep them off the streets at a young age. So I thank you. I must say, thank you to Andrea, to our leader, Andrea Stewart Cousins. I'll never forget it. I was at an event in White Plains. I think we were supporting Mayor Patterson of Mount Vernon, and leader Andrea Stewart Cousins got on the microphone and said that she adopted me as her son. That was like a Christmas gift that I could have never thought of. So thank you sincerely, my adopted mother. I got nothing but love for you. So I wanted to say thank you again for welcoming me here today to speak on such an important topic. I appreciate the efforts of everyone here today, making people aware of not only the challenges, but the effective solutions. It's been a long road for all of us, and I can honestly say today, I'm proud to say as the second Black mayor and a proud father to my children that we will not give up. Today, I want to talk about a few important topics, in the area of fatherhood in our communities. I want to talk about the system. I want to share some facts. I want to talk about the children and a little bit about this pandemic. But my ultimate goal before ending this meeting today would be that we change the narrative and embrace the reality. Research has established that father's involvement improves the child's educational outcomes, confidence, it minimizes counterproductive behavior, decreases early sexual activity and other dangerous risk associated behaviors. Although policies, discussions of fatherhood always focus primarily on child support, our common policies and practices ignore equally important non-financial factors. Policies and practices marginalize important roles of non-custodial fathers, such as caregiving roles, by excluding them from key educational and health-related decisions about their children. These policies help reinforce the myth that Black fathers are not present in their children's lives. There's also CDC data that shows that fathers desire actually the exact opposite. In my personal experience, I'd like to share, if you all don't mind, I had a case with my daughter's mother that ended up with the actual judge that was hearing the case of recusing herself. During the process, I implied to the judge that I felt that she was incompetent and unfit to handle this case, and she proved me right. One major factor of this for me was we have a system where a person can ask for child support before the judge even has any idea of who has custody of the child. And I had to fight, and I had to fight before I got what the system deemed for me to share. I had 4 different attorneys tell me during that case how lucky I was of the outcome with the child support and how lucky I was of the outcome with custody. And when I say lucky, I don't mean like I won the lotto lucky, but lucky as a Black father getting what I got. Attorneys tell me every day that you're a good father. However, the courts usually don't favor the father. And this has become so common and so normal that we become complacent. And as Black fathers and Black men, we don't even attempt to rise above it. When we say Black lives matter, are we only going to focus on the law enforcement aspect of the term? In some cases, to some men, child support can be considered a legalized extortion. You'd have to prove that the mother was nearly on crack every Sunday before most judges would even glance at the actual situation. But the system doesn't require an invoice or any proof of expenses to what the money is being used for child support cases. And the question that I had to ask the system was, why not? Fathers aren't even entitled to identify what's being bought for their children. We need to approach this with caution, with facts, and importantly, with the plan that the men who want to step up to be fathers get the rights they deserve. The starting point of this for me, which I believe today for you, should be let's change the narrative of who we are in the system. So I'm going to ask everybody on this call a quick question, and I don't want you to shout it out or put it in the chat. Just think to yourself. When you hear the words Black men, what are the first 3 thoughts or 3 words that come to your mind? Is it civil rights? Is it rap music? Is it a man walking with the hoodie on and pants 2 or 3 sizes too big or pants too small with the underwear showing? Is it a thug? Is it a basketball player? Is it a person on welfare? Is it a millionaire? Is it a man hitting his woman? Is it a mayor? What is it? Was your thought anything positive? Everything you thought of, especially the negative thoughts, is who we are identified as to the people in power, to the people in position, to the people in the courtrooms, to the people in the uniforms, to the owners of the deli, to the entire system. My mother always told me that your reputation surpasses anything people say about you. So stay focused and continue on God's path, because the devil is a lie. He will work his behind off to get you to quit and to get you to fold. And then it dawned on me. She said, our reputation surpasses everything. As a Black man, our reputation came 400 years ago. This reputation has been protected and the message has been consistent, so it hasn't changed. But today is the time that we change that reputation for our Black fathers. If you repeat a lie 15, 20 times, it becomes the truth to most. But I'm asking you all today, when you leave, use the power of your influence. If you know a good Black father, don't be scared to talk about it. Don't be scared to share it. Don't be scared to shout it. Let's change the narrative today. When you sign on Facebook, if you post on your page, we need our Black fathers to step up and be fathers. You'll get 1 million responses of people saying, you know what, you're right, because it's a popular quote and it's familiar. It's familiar to many people. Even if you know hundreds of great Black fathers, you'll still like that post or agree with that post. And I'm asking you, whoever sends these type of posts, just to reword the post. Instead of saying that, just say, we're proud of the Black fathers that step up for these children, for their children, for our children. You might not get 1 million responses, but We've begun changing the narrative to match the reality. People had the nerve to come to me and say, instead of promoting being a good father on Saturday morning, you should be focusing on COVID-19. The father that raised me prepared me for that type of attitude. The uncle that showed me love prepared me to deal with any type of adversity when I was a child. The grandfather that recognized the rights that we've gained over the last 75, 80 years of his life told me how to deal with this type of attitude before he passed away. And he also told me, don't you ever let anything come before you being a father for your children. And I promise you'll remember everything I've ever taught you. These fathers wanted me to be prepared to understand the world's not a perfect place. And as an African-American father, people may not like us simply because of who we are. These fathers gave me the tools to cope with the reality in order to change the future for mine. The system that we're living in weeds us out. But now it's time for us to create that new beginning for Black fathers, especially in America. I say, let's create the new foundation. Let's create a real narrative, and let's love one another and highlight who we are, not who they make us out to be. Let's show the world what we've been through and how we are some of the strongest people on this planet. And if you don't believe me, you can look at what we've been through to where we are today in the country, in the history of this country. Let's make owning $1 million business or a franchise common. Let's make seeing a Black president normal. Let's make seeing a white, let's make it as normal as seeing a white president. Let's own professional teams. Let's become mayors and leaders in our community. Let's build relationships with our mothers. Let's understand the past and the hurt of our women. Let's understand each other. Let's trust and build up one another. Let's enjoy each other's success without jealousy and war. Let's work towards changing the world for a better day. Let's claim it and remember, despite the headlines showing what's happening in our neighborhoods, let's remind people that this is what we're already doing. Over thousands and thousands of protests in the country this year because of this pandemic, there are 5 or 6 that received the most credit and most publicity. Those were the protests that went the wrong way. That ended up in violence. It's the same for our fathers. Out of all the great fathers in the world today, the publicity goes to the worst ones. Let's remind everyone until they realize being a Black father is a blessing to our children, it's a blessing to our future, but importantly, it's a blessing to our communities. The inaccurate perception of the African-American families are devastated by absent fathers that need to return to their responsibilities informs policy and law formulation in a variety of harmful ways. I know the gentleman mentioned earlier, professor mentioned earlier that data from the CDC shows that fathers' involvement with their children are more than fathers' uninvolvement with their children. Whether living in the same home or not, Black fathers are the most involved of all primary recorded race and ethnic groups. Why do we believe otherwise? Because the narrative against us is consistent. Social media has created a wave of false information simply by consistent posting. If one person posts Black fathers don't care about their kids, eventually that post is going to get a reaction. If people don't see something otherwise proving the opposite, they'll believe it. And they'll believe anything these days. If I posted that people in this meeting were extremely rude to me, if I went on my social media today and said everybody in this room on this event today was rude to me, 90% of my followers will respond in my favor without even watching the actual video. And that's scary. That's very scary. There might be 1 or 2 that actually watch and ask, how are they rude? As fathers, our job is to showcase who we really are. Share your photos, share your videos, do whatever it takes. And importantly, don't just share it for publicity, raise your children. Don't give up due to distractions. Don't give up due to law and policy. Don't give up due to your job or lack of income. Be the father that we already know you're destined to be, because I know you're not deadbeat fathers, and so do your children. I know you're not deadbeat fathers, and your children love you. So does a judge. And it's hard for you, but don't ever give up the fight. Raise your children, because it was harder for those who came before us. Now let's talk about children. Our children, the younger versions of us. My son is a splitting image of me. I'm scared sometimes. When we go in public, he's waving at people with the little mayoral wave and everything. I'm like, stop it. Stop it. You're not getting the politics. I don't care what nobody says. But they're the younger versions of us, and we love them. But do we love them enough to remove our personal challenges as parents? When we see a child misbehaving, do we realize that they may be acting out of pain or out of hurt, not just a bad child? They're often trying to meet a need, the need to be included, the need to be loved, the need to be welcomed, the need to be respected and even wanted. When we were kids, we were raised a little differently. I have another question for everyone here. How many of us were raised with fathers and with Black fathers in the household? And how many of us were raised without Black fathers in the household? The commonality of those of us who did and those of us who didn't have a father is we were all born with the desire to be fathers to our children, either way. And that's the narrative that we need to remind people. Society has helped change that narrative with these ridiculous laws and finances and assistance into helping mothers leave their fathers. The fathers who grew up with the father in their household, you know what we often say? I hope to raise my children the way my father raised me. The fathers who had absent fathers remember that feeling of that father not being there. You know what they often say? I'm going to be a much better father for my children than my father ever was for me. They remember that empty void that was never filled. And the fathers that grew up without a father, whether from drugs, from death, from jail, from custody, you know what they often say? No matter what, I'm going to be there for my children. It's very rare you find a father who claims that they don't want to be a father to his child or his children because the narrative isn't true. That's what they call fake news or false information, untrue. You speak Spanish, basura, for lack of a better word, but let's think about it. I challenge everyone to think about it. The children who have fathers in their lives, how are they? Are we aware of structural violence in our communities? Let's change the narrative and build up our fathers. Another addition to this is the mothers fall in love all over again with the father who loves his child. That creates healthy marriages and healthy relationships, and which also creates a good balance at home. Fathering isn't just being there for your child in some cases, it's being the balance of parenting, which we need, especially in times like this with COVID. This pandemic has brought a perspective to our lives. As the media informs us, the Black and brown communities have taken a greater hit and a greater loss. That's always the case. In wars, epidemics, pandemics, that's always what the stats show us. What makes us think as Black fathers, we don't need to take responsibility for how we eat, how we think, how we take care of our temple, how we take care of our bodies, where we go, who we're hanging out with, who we sleep with. Some of us learn that one a difficult way. What we keep present in our minds. My uncle used to tell me that your mind is like a glass of water. If you put alcohol in that glass, water gets out. Water is pure, alcohol is dangerous. You put soda in that glass, water gets out. What are you filling your mind with on a daily basis? It's psychological. Our children and our young men are going through the toughest times this year. And I can assure you, when they make it out of this, they're going to be the strongest, the wisest, and one of the most effective generation this nation will ever see. We need to guide them now. Their father figures should enhance that strength, that mentally and physically and emotionally, broaden their perspectives, give them wisdom, give them optimism, and focus on the goals to get through these type of crises. My father used to watch me make a bad decision and he would tell me, use your brain, man. And when he would say that, I would say, you know what? I should use my brain. That's not a good idea. My mother was the one that was loving and she would warn me before anything. Don't do that. Don't touch that. Don't go over there. My father wouldn't sugarcoat anything. He tried to teach me everything. And I needed that. And if it weren't for my father, and I love my mother to death, but if it weren't for my father, I wouldn't be strong enough to deal with the criticism that I receive every single day, sometimes just for breathing when people are bored. I wouldn't have been strong enough to deal with the hate, with the jealousy, with the envy, and I couldn't deal with the struggles that I've experienced as a man, nor the challenges that I've faced as a father. So I thank my father. The coronavirus has also reminded me as a Black father to keep my relationship strong with God. I know it's possible that we have lost some, it's possible that we all may lose some. This virus is also showing me to show all the possible love that I can to my children because I'm not promised tomorrow. Remove any hate for anyone I have because my heartbeat can stop at any minute and I don't want anyone to feel like they deserve my happiness. These are things that I remind our Black fathers during these times. We've read about the school to prison pipeline. We've read about the single parent homes. We've heard about everything about the cheating man. But now I want to share the information about the great fathers. I want to end this message today with 4 important points. First one is advocate for the change in the system. The system has a lot of changes that we need to implement all around, and we'll make it happen in due time. So our sons will have more of an opportunity to be the fathers that we want them to be, and our daughters will get the love from a male figure that loves them like no other man ever will. Second one, change the narrative. This is specifically for my Black fathers. Promote the love and the unity that we have. When they go low, we go high, but let's not wait for them to go low. Let's stay high above the fray. You say there are no good Black fathers, I'll show you that you're not looking. You say that better yet, I'll show you some great Black fathers. You say Black fathers don't care about their children, I'll show you Black fathers, including myself, that care and love their children and are willing to fight for their children. A child should already be blessed to have a father, yet in some cases we have to fight due to the emotional pain of a person who probably didn't have a strong father relationship in their life. We must be there for our children. Change the narrative. Always take time to better yourself. Your body needs practice in every aspect to be full and pure. When we prepare for a basketball tournament or a sports league, we practice every chance we get. How often do we practice life? Practice understanding those we disagree with. Practice healthy eating habits. Practice filling our minds with inspiration, with knowledge. Practice reminding ourselves to be great fathers. Practice removing any jealousy in our hearts and filling it with motivation. Practice living life to its fullest potential to be pure, loving, fulfilling Black fathers for our children. And last but not least, to all my Black fathers out there who may take a moment to watch this to the end, I love you. Love yourselves. You are loved, you are appreciated. I love myself enough to recognize love, and I love my Black fathers. I pray that when this concludes today, we continue to be those responsible parenting fathers that we already are. I also pray that we don't allow the distractions or the reputation placed upon us from 400 years ago to go any further. We are Black men, we are proud Black men, we are proud Black fathers, and from this day forward, no one can take that from us. God bless you all, and thank you sincerely for allowing me to speak today.
Before Tom comes in with Q&A, I just want to say, wow. The emotion, the depth, the insight, the thoughtfulness, the commitment that I know just hit me in the chest with the words that you have just spoken was very impactful. So we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for that. So we got a couple of things on tap moving forward. I just want to chime into my colleague, Tom. And I want to say to my other committee members, can you just give a thumbs up so people can see that you have been a part of this astonishing movement that we're calling the Fathering Conference? Just go to your emoji. See your little emoji down there, your little reaction emoji, just hit that thumb. Let everybody know, yeah, that's right. That's the love. That's the love. So these are the greatest people I've worked with. I've been with this event for 6 years. Others have been here a little longer, but we've united to this moment. So thank you. So Tom, what do we have on tap in terms of Q&A, if anything?
There's a quick question about when. Thank you, Mayor Rainey. That touched my heart too. It was awesome. Quick question about when will we know that the narrative has tipped over to the correct narrative? Like what will be an indication that we've arrived at the correct narrative?
So I would definitely say when something seems common, you know, I'm only the second African-American mayor in the city of Peekskill. And I remember when I first took office, for example, you know, Governor Cuomo had invited a lot of the new elected mayors and town supervisors to the governor's mansion that spring. And when I went up there, I had my mayoral pin on, I had my suit on, my tie on like everybody else. And there's probably only two or three other people in the entire room of 75 people that look like me or even my shade of skin. And it was funny because I remember, I won't say his name because we're like really good friends now, but a guy walked up to me and what do you do? Do you work for the governor or? And I said, no, I'm the mayor of Peekskill. He's like, oh, you're mayor? God, I'm sorry. And his response was like, oh my God, I didn't mean to insult you. But I'm like, I told him it's okay. It's normal because seeing a person like me here is not normal. So when you start to see positive things about Black fathers, when it becomes normal to see that, that's when we've gotten over to that realm. Right now, when you see something positive about a Black father, you isolate it like, oh, okay, that's good. That's one out of a million other things going on. But when you walk in that building as a Black young mayor, we want everybody to look at that as normal. Oh, it's another mayor from the city of Peekskill without being questioned, like, who is this guy? Is he a sweep? Is he a butler? You know what I mean? We want the same message for the Black fathers. So when you start to see more positive things about Black fathers, we want it to be where when you see something negative, that's when it becomes a conversation. Like, wait a minute, why are you doing this to our community? Rather than when you see something positive, like, yeah, that's one in a million. So once we switch the roles of the message, I think that we'll be there.
Thank you. And there's amazing reactions in the chat right now to your
okay, good.
Yeah,
awesome.
It hit people, hit them hard, I think. So thank you. Donnie?
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks again, Mayor Rainey. Just what we needed today. This is a great wake-up call for us. So before I segue over to the conference presentations, Matthew, did you want to, you have a little message for our congregation?
Nope, just for the presenters. Just a reminder that I'll be hitting a little sound reminder with 2 minutes left in your presentation.
Fantastic. Okay, so without further ado, I want to introduce our next presenter. His name is Scott Leach. But before I get into how amazing he is as a professional, let me just throw in a little anecdotal stuff, right? So, Scott, you got to help me with this, bro. All right. Now, were you a Ohio Buckeye? Okay. So that means that he was a D1 scholarship athlete, right? We come from the same hood, right? I grew up in White Plains. I believe Scott was over in Greenburgh. We had this like serious thing going on, this entanglement of competition, okay? Trying to one up the other, right? Athletes galore from both sides, D1 prospects from both sides, but our beloved Scott was also drafted into the NFL, okay, to the Saints. So his swag comes with some extra energy that I think we need to be able to understand in terms of our travails in life. And I just wanted to offer that to everybody because we all have a personal narrative, right? So he's a bad dude and he's a good man. And what starts out as, like crazed competition at this stage in our lives winds up as immense love, So right now, Scott is the director of the Fatherhood Initiative at the New York City Department of Youth and Community Development. And he's going to engage a colleague, his name is Tom Valon, who's the program coordinator of the Fatherhood Program of Routt County, in this specialized application called Fatherhood 15. So without further ado, take it away, Scott.
Thank you, Donnie. I want to also just point out that living in Westchester in the White Plains area, we had some great men in our lives. I always think about Frank Brown, who's the late Frank Brown, who many things he did in White Plains. My uncle Theodore Young, Coach Lee, and a lot of police officers in the community who were fathers to us in the community, even though we may not have our fathers living in the homes with us. But in the White Plains, Greenburgh, Elmsford, Mount Vernon, Yonkers areas, we had some outstanding men who stepped in the gap for us. So anything that I've achieved, and I was talking to the police officer, Satch. I don't know if you all remember Satch. He was a detective in the White Plains Police Department. I was talking to him, and I remember just said, if it wasn't for the things that they taught us, made us do, check on us, run us down, force us to go home, be in school, sometimes beat us in the street and disappoint us, we would not be the men that we are now. So I thank those men for stepping in the gap. So furthermore, I want to go back. I want to introduce a lovely young lady I met first from the NFI, the National Fatherhood, which has been a great friend to me. And anybody who knows anything about the field of fatherhood knows that NFI is probably the largest depository of fatherhood curriculum and ways of engaging fathers in courses and classes. I've had the privilege of working with her, a lot of her colleagues, developing things with 24/7 Dad. And this piece that we're talking about is how to engage fathers. A lot of times we want to be able to engage fathers, but we don't know how to engage fathers. And there's a certain technique and certain skill set and the certain ways of practitioners are able to bring men into the conversations. A lot of things that we're doing are very well, but we can't get it to fathers. We can't get it to the men. We can't get this information to them to help them grow, to help them change this narrative of bad fathers. So I want to first introduce Ave. Ave there? I think you're muted, Ave.
I'm
There
old.
you go. So go ahead, Ave.
Hi. So just go.
Yes.
Great. Well, you're right. Scott and I go back. I don't even know how long, Scott, but definitely look to Scott as one of our champions for fathers, for sure. So I'm with National Fatherhood Initiative, and I guess I have to say I'm really honored to be among such company today, for sure. But I want to get kind of right to it. Scott asked me to kind of present a resource that we have that I find can be really helpful, not just because of the pandemic, but Scott, you do the 24/7 Dad curriculum, which is our evidence-based program. It's a 12-week curriculum. Obviously, you can tweak that in some ways, but it is a long commitment. And I think part of why NFI developed the Fathering in 15 resource was to be able to take some of the concepts from the evidence-based curriculum and put it in more briefer components for dads to use, and they can use that over social media. So this can be accessed through a cell phone, a tablet. I'm going to show my lack of technology here, but yeah, so it can be downloaded and viewed from anywhere. So there is a demo that we have for that. And I just want to backtrack too. One of the best quotes that I put it on my email, and why I love what Scott does and the fact that there's a focus on youth is we're looking to break some of these cycles. One of the biggest things that we see in some of the research is that dads don't even know the value they bring to their child's life. And so when we do these courses, whether they're brief like Fathering in 15 or 24/7 Dad, that's the biggest thing that we see that comes out in the dads when they see the value that they bring to that child, because society says they're replaceable, and we know that they're not. And so that's always the aha moment that helps with the transformation, and then they're open to the skills that they might need to work with their children and to be the best father they can be. So there is a demo. It's about, I think, a little over 6 minutes that will just really explain how Fathering in 15 works. And then I'm going to just fill you in on a couple little things that can be tweaked. And then Tom Valand is going to talk about, he's actually using the resource. So I think somebody has the video queued up.
Hi, my name is Melissa, and I will be walking you through a brief demo of the newest online learning experience for dads from National Fatherhood Initiative called Fathering in 15. Fathering in 15 is a unique, powerful, subscription-based online learning experience that you, your staff, and dads will absolutely love. It takes dads through 15 important topics that help them learn to be the best dads they can be. Let's look at those topics now. They include family history, being a man and dad, handling emotions, grief and loss, your health, you and mom, talking with mom, co-parenting, fathering skills, child development, child discipline, sexuality, intimacy, work-family balance, and managing money. You can view Fathering in 15 on a desktop computer, tablet, or any other mobile device. Once you purchase a subscription for your location, we will ask you for your location name and your logo so that we can brand your site and the certificate of completion. Once we receive those branding items, you will receive access to your unique Fathering in 15 URL or web address within 48 hours. Your site will have your name here at the top in the center. Please remember that we require one subscription per location where you plan to use Fathering in 15. And once you have that, you can share your unique URL with as many dads and staff at your location as you like. So let's take a look at the site. When you first arrive at Fathering in 15, you are on the home page. This is where you can see and engage with the introduction text and video. The introduction section is followed by the topic cards below. These topics are the same ones that we just reviewed. Dads can click on any topic to begin learning that topic, and he doesn't have to go in any particular order. So let's look at one of the topics, family history. Inside of each topic is text and video and other interactive areas that Dad can engage with. He can click through to review questions. He can watch a video. He can also click to open up the various sections to learn more and engage with the topic. So let's look at the different sections within each topic. You can also access them from the Browse Topic sections menu above. The sections include what to know, what else, what to ask, get inspired, and learn more. At the top of each topic, there is also a link to download a printable version of all of the content in that topic. If you click on that link, it opens a PDF, and this contains everything that is in the family history topic so that you can print this out and allow the dads to take a copy home, or you can use it to walk through the topic with them at further length. At the bottom of the Fathering in 15 site, we keep a link to our organization subscribes, and that the dads you serve will benefit from this excellent online resource.
Looks like the sound went.
So thank you, everyone. I once again, and Ave, I want you to introduce Tom, because Tom is using this on a regular basis, and Tom is going to bring us some tips and skills for us. So Ave, I'll let you introduce Tom.
Sure. Okay. And Tom, I hope I say it right, Valand. And he is from the coolest town name, Steamboat Springs, Colorado. And he is the program coordinator for the Fatherhood program of Routt County. And Tom has used our Fathering in 15, and there's a great blog we did where he's using it now with Zoom, and he's delivering it to groups. So it can be group led, it can be given to a dad to do on his own, it can be done one-on-one with a dad, it can be printed up and handed out. So a lot of different ways. But Tom, how are you, I know that you've shifted over to using it in Zoom. How is that going, and how are the dads responding to that?
It's good. Real quick, I want to say thank you so much to everyone for allowing me to be part of this event. Even though I'm in Colorado, I grew up in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. So I feel like I'm in a good place, and I feel like I'm with my people. So it's good to be here. And again, thank you so much. Yeah, in regards to using this program, it's been good. I think, a number of advantages that it has, which I think the narrator for the video talked about, is that, the individual can access it like at their well, and with all the public health kind of recommendations in place in terms of not being able to meet in groups and what have you. It's just really nice to be able to have a program that people can kind of use from their phone or their computer. So anyone with any transportation challenges or anything like that, it's worked really well. And from functionality standpoint, it's been seamless, which is nice. And the language that's used in the program, like the words, vocabulary, or whatnot, everything is clear and understandable by all the students that I've engaged, and I've worked with people from kind of all different socioeconomic groups, and it's been good. And I've worked with one-on-one with some individuals, and I've done it with groups up to 7 or 8. So.
Yeah, and you with the Zoom version, he kind of taught me some Zoom tricks about putting the dads into breakout rooms to kind of discuss a topic and then come back to the larger group. And he said, interestingly, maybe you can tell it, how the 2 dads that never met before, that you met them at a store, that they were they bonded and became friends through the Fathering in 15, doing that in that format.
Yeah, one thing that's been nice, I think, in a setting like this, you look up at the screen and there's dozens of faces looking at you, or even if you're doing a class that has 6 or 7 people, it can be kind of intimidating. So what we'll do when we do those kind of brief, we go down to the questions, like the basic group discussion questions, and I'll basically pair off guys and kind of put them in the room so they can get to really know one another, because a lot of times the guys are kind of apprehensive to open up to that bigger group of guys. So doing those smaller groups, so there'll be 2 or 3 people at a time, has worked really well. And that's probably the complaint I get the most, is when I do kind of tell those guys it's time to come back to the main group, they complain that they didn't have enough time to talk. And, when we do these classes, a big part of it is, trying to get the content from the program. But with these longer programs, we're really trying to build bonds amongst these men. So when we have these breakout sessions, when we have these Q&A sessions, that's when the bonding really happens. And it's great that these guys come and do these programs when we're doing the classes. But what I really want is these guys to have someone that they can talk to, someone they can trust when the class is done. And this program has really allowed for that to happen. Actually, it's interesting. I had 2 individuals in the class I just wrapped up where both individuals had the same, the mother of their child was the same woman. And they actually were in the process of actually getting custody of their children. And that was the first time they'd really spent time with one another. And it was important because their children were both young, and they'll probably be spending a lot of time together going forward. So it was a great opportunity for them to really get to know one another and to, be talking about things that they probably wouldn't have the chance to speak about. They wouldn't think to speak about, whether it be, emotions and discipline and a lot of the topics that were presented. So it was a great kind of launching point for those guys.
So I want to jump in real quickly for a second, just to let those know who are not practitioners, or those who are looking to start fatherhood programs or getting father programs off the ground. This is an excellent tool and a way of getting guys to start conversations. As Tom, as you know, and Avi, a lot of times when guys come to program, they're very I don't want to say shy, but they're very reserved and not wanting to share. But once again, what we've found out in the field, at least I found out, I'm not sure if you, Tom, and those who are practitioners in the field, that once you get a guy starting with a topic, you'll get them to really
They don't shut up.
Get their trust. And you got it. And these are different tactics of getting their trust. Once again, getting them to start talking about their family. And what we know in the field of fatherhood, you can't move forward until you know your past family history. And a lot of things are going back in understanding what mistakes were in your past family life so that you can correct them moving forward. And that's kind of like what the mayor said also. And this is just different tactics. And like I said, using 24/7 Dad, which is the largest, I think it's the biggest, and please make sure I'm correct, of having the information. And I think it's used probably more than any curriculum that I know of around the country, 24/7 Dad, or some aspect of 24/7 Dad, whether it's AM, PM, inside, outside. There's so many different, and I know Avi has all the different magazines behind us. So if you look at her, she has a whole library of fatherhood credential information that we use at times.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll tell you, even 24/7, one of our other champions of fatherhood, the way he described it, and I always steal good stuff, so for sure, and I share it. But he said, consider it like a mirror, a window, and a telescope. And the mirror is, we first look at your own story, the inner man, and what your story is. The window is looking at the relationships that you have, and kind of looking out at them. But the telescope shows you what can be. And so, these are just tools that can be used to just, awaken the guys to the importance of their role and the impact they have on their children, and some tools and skills. They've got to deal with mom, one way or another. So that's a big part of it, being a co-parent or spouse or partner, however their situation is. And then, an empathic look at their children. What's the impact on the children? And that's the goal of this, right? My favorite quote, it's easier to raise, a good child than a broken man, and repair a broken man. So, again, love the emphasis on youth. And I think that this format has an appeal because it's technology, harder for me, but younger people tend to take to it a lot easier. Tom, I did want to ask really quickly, do you meet weekly? How do you do that? Do the guys work on stuff and then come back? How do you deliver that? Like, is it?
I had done it on a weekly basis, and that worked pretty well. What I did is I combined some of the like topics together. So I've done it over 8 weeks and over 10 weeks. And that's worked well thus far.
Do a session each time?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and we should do about like a 2-hour meeting. And I mean, I'll engage them like during the week to kind of like, check out this material. This is kind of what we'll be talking about, etc. And yeah, but we do be doing like most of our work like while we're, getting together. And so we always kind of end like, this is just kind of starting things off. We're just getting things heated up. So, please, what's nice, like you were saying, it kind of opens the door for a lot of these conversations. And then, if the guys want to go deeper, I'm glad to continue to work with them, offline.
I mean, Tom, in New York, my portfolio, I require them to do class twice a week for 10 weeks because of that. And it's outstanding. And you're right that I do it twice a week because that lag time in wanting guys to report back, we're finding out that week is too long and they may forget things. If this is within a short period of time, they can report back, hey, this tactic actually really works, or this happens, and I've learned this skill, and we're checking in. So, and I think for everybody in Tom, I guess you could also, sure, you can right size it for how you want to do your program.
Yeah, and if you're doing it in like a county jail or something like that, because if a person's in that facility for maybe like 60 or 90 days, you can't really do like a 16-week course. Right. But if you do like twice a week, like you were saying, like I've done that with Inside Out Dad, and it's worked out great. And then you can cover a lot of content fairly quickly and then have the guys really in it as you're doing it.
The other thing, before I get to some questions with everybody, I also want to let everybody know that also at NFI, there's information that I really tell everybody to do. It's a survey about your own program. It's a survey to see if you're a father-friendly organization. And a lot of times agencies don't even recognize that they're not even father-friendly. So Avi, you want to say something real quickly about that?
Yeah, and I can put my contact info, but it's the Father Friendly Checkup. It's a free download, and it's a great way to assess your organization's father friendliness. You'd be surprised. It can be things like your physical environment. Is there a changing table in the men's room, or only in the women's room? Some basic things like that. It evaluates 4 different components: organizational development, program development, community engagement, and I can't even remember the 4th one. But again, it's going to assess those categories for you. And they're great. You could take them for a staff meeting and maybe do another one in 6 months or a year and just see where you're at on the issues. So leadership development, sorry, that was the first one. Yeah, so there's a ton of free stuff on our website, and my role there is as a support person now. I used to do a lot of trainings and things, and I'm really there to be a support. So I'm so surprised people go to our store to buy things and they don't know that we have this whole wealth of free stuff. Like if you have female staff that's struggling with dealing with dads or working with dads, there's a great ebook that you can use for training female staff to effectively engage fathers. There's ebooks on mentoring, whether you're mentoring fathers or mentoring fatherless children. So just there's tons there. Actually, more than we sell is in there. So I always find myself as I want to make sure people know about that. Our blogs, they're brief. They come out once a week, and they're all stories about you. For example, on Fathering in 15, I just did one on Tom because he's the one that pioneered the Zoom method with it. And so we did an article about that and how he's doing that. We did one with 3 ideas that we got from the field, because it doesn't, Fathering in 15 doesn't monitor who's on it. You can't see how many dads accessed it or, how many sessions they went through. So we've had organizations come up with a Google form that you can put in front of the Fathering in 15, and you can garner who's accessing it, when they accessed it, how often. Those are some tips. We had an organization who uses a RedCap data collection system, and they've integrated Fathering in 15 into that. That's a term, I'm not even familiar too much with that, but yeah, they said the dad goes through so many sessions and then he does the quiz part. That's the evaluation. It does have an evaluation that the dads can take, a survey, we call it. It's optional, but if you need to have measurement, it does do that. And we've had some faith-based organizations who've attached scripture to the different sessions. And they've said, hey, anybody wants to use that, go ahead, we'll give it out. So if you reach out to me, I can provide that to you. I even did instructions on how to do the Google form, and that's impressive for me, let me tell you. But
Ave, I know we have to really wrap up and let the next group go, but I definitely would tell everybody, make sure that if Ave, you can put your information in the chat to reach out to you, to make sure that they can contact you. And also, there is a online community with 24/7 Dad, there is a community where you can get a lot of information from practitioners in the field that if sometimes you just drop a question in and people from around, there's a huge community that people will respond to you. So I guess at this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Donnie, back to you.
Yep,
Okay.
got it, Scott. Thank you so much.
Thank
And you and to Ave and to Tom, thank you so much. I think that this application has a lot of integrity to it and a lot of applicability. So so long as we have the contact information for all, hopefully it will be used and dispensed. So again, many thanks. So now we're going to go to our next segment, which is on housing support services. So let me introduce a very dignified, elegant man, humorous, informative, and he's a steward of the city of Greenburgh. Let me introduce to you Andre G. Early. He is the commissioner, the town of Greenburgh Department of Community Resources, who will introduce the speakers to talk about issues regarding housing support services. Brother Andre.
Thank you, good brother Simmons. You give me way too much credit, but I greatly appreciate it. Good morning, all. I trust everyone's doing great today. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce some key individuals that are in White Plains that really address the housing concerns that take place within Westchester County and beyond. So with that being said, first up, we will have Judith Messi, who was born in the Bronx and raised in Westchester County. After receiving her undergraduate degree in psychology from Cornell University, Ms. Messi served 2 years as a health educator with the U.S. Peace Corps in Northwest Africa. Since then, Ms. Messi has dedicated her professional career to assisting individuals, families, and communities assess and respond to their unique challenges. Currently, Ms. Messi is the Deputy Commissioner of Planning for the City of White Plains, where she administers the city's community development program.
Thank you
Welcome.
so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's can everyone hear me? I'll never get used to speaking out into the great beyond. So it is a pleasure to be here today. I am in awe of the speakers that I am following, each and every one of them, and I am especially focused today on accepting Mayor Rainey's call to action about changing the narrative. So I've been actually focusing on that as I hear everyone speak and trying to really center my role in changing the narrative. I'm going to share my slides in just a minute. I'm going to do sort of a large overview of housing issues. And then I'm going to turn it over to two of my colleagues who are really going to speak on what resources are available to fathers and families in Westchester. But I want to start by doing a shout out to my own father, who's his father risked everything to bring my father over to this country as a child. They were immigrants and really taught me about how one can best love one's country by trying to change the things about it that one finds unacceptable while embracing the things that one really loves. And in the writings of our tradition, of our faith, there's a quote that I want to share with you that comes out of chapters of the Fathers, appropriately enough, that says, "Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now, love mercy now, walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it." And that is a call to action that I remember every day as one can feel daunted by the issues of housing in Westchester. So I'm now going to be sharing my screen. I hope everyone can see it. Oh, now Sam. Okay. So is everyone seeing my screen? I can't hear.
No, not yet.
Not yet. All right, I'm going to try that again. Share screen. Now. Excellent.
Yes.
So let's see. I'm going to go to. My apologies. You're in trouble when I'm your AV tech supporter here. Okay. So the top 5 things I want to communicate is that housing is a social justice issue, that housing prices in Westchester are out of reach for many households, that residents have a right to fair housing, that housing safety matters, and that resources are available. So when we look at housing as a social justice issue, I found this quote that's just very relevant and very timely, that the lack of stable, affordable housing is the foundation of many of America's social problems, including poverty, homelessness, educational disparities, and healthcare. So it's not just about the house itself, it's about everything that the house and the housing and the neighborhood can afford a father and his family. And we know that we have a history of housing as a social justice issue in the United States. This isn't just for Westchester, this is more broad, but the GI Bill, whose application was seriously flawed in excluding Black veterans and others to things like redlining and restrictive covenants and other ways in which we have, which housing has really been used as a tool to deny the whole sections of our population their civil rights. The second thing that I want to talk about is what is affordable housing and affordability of housing or lack thereof in Westchester. So the government says in their that housing is affordable if a family spends no more than 30% of their income on housing. So we see over in the corner here, there's a little, this is the third that's housing, and then 2/3 should go for everything else. And in the middle, we see what it would take for that to actually happen in Westchester. One would need to work 110 hours per week at minimum wage to afford a 2-bedroom rental. Or if you wanted to be like a normal person and just work one job, you would need to make $32.53 an hour or $67,000 annually to afford that 2-bedroom apartment. So we know that that is highly unattainable for many people. And so we are aware that affordable housing is a challenge that faces fathers and families throughout Westchester. The next thing I want to talk about in the top 5 things that fathers need to know about housing is fair housing. And to that discussion, I invite this father over here, who is Errol Collymore. And Errol Collymore was a father of 3 who is largely credited with addressing segregation issues in White Plains, which is the city that that I work for. Very proud of the city and everything that the city is doing. At the time that Errol Collymore moved to White Plains, he bought a house in an all-white neighborhood. A cross was burned on his lawn. People protested. Local newspapers made it clear that they were not welcome, and he was offered a large sum to resell his house and move out of the community, but he refused. And he was described as a virtual civic hurricane. And he went on to really be a vanguard of civil rights in White Plains in terms of both housing as well as desegregating the police force, movie theaters, public swimming pools, and schools and churches. And he was, again, as I mentioned, the father of 3. So race is not the only area where discrimination can happen. This list is all of the protected classes that are covered by fair housing laws in New York State. And Marlene is going to talk more about the services that WRO offers in this regard. But knowing about fair housing is an important view on housing in Westchester. The next thing I'm going to talk about is safe housing. So 8 out of every 10 housing units in Westchester were constructed before 1979. Why is this an issue for fathers? Well, lead paint was used in homes up until 1978. So if you're living in a house that was built before 1979, in 1978 or earlier, that's one of these 8 lovely little houses up here, chances are you're living in a house where lead paint was used, and lead paint is a huge public health issue for kids who will chew on anything, as I remember my kids doing. And so that's something that fathers need to know about. In addition, over 70% of the housing stock is 50 years old, and those houses can just, while they may not have lead paint in them, may have some issues that need addressing to make them safe for the occupants, kids and parents alike. So the last thing that I want to say, and I think this is really the most important piece of what I'm going to be talking about, is that housing resources are available. They are available throughout Westchester. My colleagues who are going to speak next, Marlene Zarkas and Yaskara Maldonado, are going to talk about the different resources that are available to fathers. And so I am going to turn it over to Marlene right now, who is Executive Director of WRO and a huge advocate for everything related to housing, fair housing, affordable housing. Just really a phenomenal person in this field. And while I do that, I am now going to pull up Marlene's, let's see. I want to, hang on a second. Again.
And Judy is pulling this up because Marlene doesn't know how to pull it up herself. For
Apparently
which I'm
he
sorry.
doesn't either, Marlene. So hang on, let me try this. Why don't you, Marlene, give me just a second if you want to introduce yourself. And
Sure. First of all, thank you all so much for allowing WRO to join you at this really important conference. And thank you to Judy for giving such a great summary of housing, resources, segregation, and many important things about housing in Westchester County. Let me tell you a little bit about, thank you so much, whoever did that.
All right.
Okay. WRO is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to promote equal, affordable, and accessible housing opportunities for all residents of Westchester and the lower Hudson Valley. What that means is that we want everyone to be able to have a safe, fair, affordable home to live in, no matter what your circumstances are. We've been doing this for 52 years and we're not even tired yet. Next slide, please. Thank you. So why does where you live matter? It matters for so many reasons. If you take a look at the screen here, where you live matters. This is not a deep insight. It's probably intuitive to most of us. And the disproportionate impact of COVID on Black and Latinx communities has really brought this home. The community you live in offers a complex and intertwining opportunity set in all of these different areas. So education, where you live determines where you go to school. Where you live is public safety. Do you have safe streets? Do you have good cops and firefighters? Health, do you have open spaces to exercise? Do you have healthcare readily available? Nutrition, do you live in a food desert or can you readily access healthy food? And economics, the housing market dynamics, access to credit, access to banking. Are the banks open nearby you 24/7? Can you at least get to an ATM 24/7? And so important, intergenerational wealth building. If you are able to hand down your home to your children, they have a leg up. They can then hand down the home to their children and they have a leg up. And this continues generation after generation. Next slide, please. So let me tell you, WRO can help you with so many areas of housing all the time, but particularly in this COVID time. We can help with eviction prevention. We have financial assistance if you're behind in your rent, if you need a security deposit. We can help with moving expenses and your first month's rent. We can also give you financial literacy training, which is so critical. If you don't know how to create a budget, you can't stick to a budget. And that's something that we can help with. So in addition to what we do, eviction prevention funding all the time, right now we have special funds available for people who are impacted by COVID. So we have city and we have county grants. The city of White Plains has a grant that can provide up to 6 months of rental arrears and help with eviction prevention. The county has grants that can help with eviction prevention. As I go through this, let me just mention that there are different eligibility requirements for different grants, and you'll see on our screen our contact information so you can find out all the specifics. Next slide, please. In addition to eviction prevention, we can help with mortgage foreclosure prevention. So we can go to court on your behalf opposite lawyers from the bank. So you don't actually have to have your own attorney if you are in the process of trying to modify your mortgage or avoid foreclosure. We also right now have financial assistance available. If you're at risk of losing your home because of mortgage, because you're behind in your mortgage, and you've been impacted by COVID, and that's why you're at risk of losing your home, we can help you with funding from White Plains. If you live in the city of White Plains and you're COVID impacted, we can give you up to 6 months of assistance there. And for the county, if you live in Westchester County, until this Thursday, and I realize this is like so time sensitive, if you can get us a complete application, we can help you with funding for up to 4 months of mortgage arrears. There's only a few qualifications. You have to live in Westchester, be a resident. It has to be your primary residence that you're trying to save. You have to be current in your mortgage payments before COVID. That means through March, and you have to have been impacted by COVID. So please get to us on Monday morning or send us an email. This is so time sensitive. White Plains will go on longer. We can help you if you live there, but the county funding is going very quickly. Next slide, please. We also provide first-time home buying. And I myself was surprised that people are going crazy to buy homes now because interest rates are so low. We have an incredible program in Spanish and in English. We tell you all the basics, everything you need to know to buy a home and to be able to maintain that home so that you don't end up in our mortgage foreclosure program. And also, taking our class gives you access to various grants for down payment and closing costs. We have in the past helped with up to $15,000 in down payment and closing costs. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, I'm racing through this. Fair housing and fair lending is how our agency started. It's still at the core of what we do. We provide education and outreach so you can avoid being discriminated against. The most effective investigative tool that we have to prevent discrimination and to help you if that's happening to you is a testing program. So we have pair testing. We'll have, if we're testing for race, we'll have a white tester and a black tester. We tell them, we give them all the qualifications, what they need to know to be renting this apartment or buying this house, what they earn, where they want to live, what they're looking for. We make them very similar, except for the protected class that we're testing, whether it's race or disability or age. And they have undercover recorders and or video cameras, which is totally legal. This is Supreme Court approved. And we send them in to the housing provider and we see how they're treated. This is often the only way that you can prove discrimination. It's an incredibly effective tool. And we invite you, if you feel that you've been the subject of discrimination, to please let us know, especially now, source of income. If anyone, any housing provider says to you, we won't take your voucher, we don't take vouchers, that's now against the law in New York State, and we can test for that. One last thing that we can help with, next slide, please. Accessibility modifications. Whether you own or you rent your home, we can get you access. We can help you with access, like lowering your countertops, widening your shower, getting a stair chair to get up the steps. We can provide grants up to $25,000 for disability-related needs. So if it's aging or if it's a disability, we can help with that. Last slide, please. So I really encourage you. WRO has always been a wealth of housing resources, and particularly at this time of COVID, I hope you'll reach out to us. The easiest way to get us is by email. There's a full staff directory on our website with emails and phone numbers, and you can see the everything on your screen. And I'm sorry I had to race through this, but I hope you'll reach out to us if you need help. And thank you all so much for listening.
Mr. Early, it occurs to me that I may have, while I got all caught up in screen sharing, I took over your role of introducing our speaker. So my apologies. If you'd like to introduce Marlene, I got totally flummoxed. I couldn't do like two things at once here. So
Judy, your introduction was great. Thank you.
But it wasn't the official one. So
okay.
I turn it over to you now, Mr. Early. My apologies.
Okay, it's all right. Hey, we know how to pivot in the face of adversity. So next up, we have Yaskara Maldonado, who is with the Neighborhood Conditions Coordinator and Community Liaison for the City of White Plains. Yaskara is a part of the city's RISE grant that was launched in 2017 by the Attorney General's comprehensive strategy for helping New York families and communities rebuild from the housing crisis. She grew up in White Plains and now serves her community by educating residents on safe housing, code enforcement, and connecting them to the resources available in Westchester County. I present to you Yaskara Maldonado. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Yaskara, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen for you with your slides, if that's okay.
Oh, sure. Thank you. That'd be helpful.
If I can find them.
All right. So thank you very much, everyone, for allowing us to be here today. It's been amazing to see all the great speakers and just to have a great community that we can come to and for support and resources, right? And that especially in these times, that's exactly what we need. And so, as you heard, my position in the city of White Plains is with the Cities Rise grants, right? And the Cities Rise, as mentioned, was launched in 2017. And the purpose of it is to have a thoughtful approach to how municipalities revitalize their communities and ensure housing issues are addressed with the engagement of our communities. And as we've heard all throughout today's presentations, it is an important piece for all of our communities, our fathers, right, to be engaged in what is going on in our homes to better understand how to address situations. And so I'm just gonna wait. Judy, if anything, I do have it ready to go, so I can just pull it up if it's easier for you.
Go ahead, Yaskara. I'm having difficulties here. My
No
apologies.
worries. Okay, so I'll go ahead and share it. Thank you.
Leave it to a young person. There we go.
So we're going to talk about understanding your neighborhood conditions and the challenges that goes along with that, right? So housing conditions. What is safe housing? I know personally, before I stepped into this role, I did not really think about what safe housing meant, right? And so that's something that I've been learning through this whole process of me being in this position. And so in summary, right, safe housing means housing that does not jeopardize the health, safety, or welfare of its occupants, and it permits access to electricity, heat, running water for the benefit of the occupants, right? And so something that we happen to see, especially once the winter starts to get here, is people without heat, right? Without hot running water. And so those are safe housing issues, right? But so the next thing is, how do we address those, right? The other word that was always thrown around and I didn't really understand what it was code enforcement. So I receive a code violation. It's a piece of paper that gets sent to my home or sometimes stuck on my door. And what is this, right? So code enforcement, that's the first thing to understand. And code enforcement is there to identify and investigate, right? They correct unsafe, unsightly, or illegal conditions in our communities. They look at things like the streets, the buildings, property conditions, and it's in order to maintain the highest quality of life standards for our neighborhoods. So it's not just about the city looking nice and pretty, it's also about that safe housing, right, that I mentioned before. And so code enforcement really involves different departments within our cities. It can involve the building department, right, which is where our code enforcement officers are usually based out of. It involves public works, public safety, and the law department, right? Because I hope no one has ever had this situation before, but if you don't address code enforcement violations, you get sent to court, right? And so code enforcement officers are really responsible for the evaluation, the educating, and the enforcing of local and state codes in the form of answering questions, issuing warnings, or giving citations for code violations. And so the biggest piece for code enforcement is that education piece, right? And that's really what my job essentially is within the city of White Plains, is educating our community as to what are and what aren't code violations. And if you do receive a code violation, how can we address those? And these don't happen just within the city of White Plains, right? This happens in all of our cities. And so it's important for us to understand what to do. So let's start from the beginning. For example, in simple terms, right? Let's say you go ahead and you paint the door of your house blue, right? But the city in which you live, that residential community doesn't allow blue doors. So what happens next, right? If let's say that city or that community only allows brown or white doors, then you will receive a violation notice, right? Which is given to you by the code enforcement officer. And so in that letter, it will tell you that you have until the end of the month to make sure that your door is brown or white again, right? So it gives you an idea of why the violation notice was sent to your house. After that deadline that's on that form has been given to you, you have until that date to change whatever violation you received, and then you will receive a re-inspection, right, of the corrections that took place from a code enforcement officer. And the inspectors will come to your property and they'll make sure that they inspect the home, the property, and that you actually corrected and are now in what they call compliance. And so it's important to note that sometimes the wording in these violation notices can be confusing or very technical. And they use a lot of terms associated with building systems and code that is written for the cities and for the states. And so I mentioned that education piece, right? So it's important that you understand that if there is something on these notices, if you ever receive a notice, which I hope you don't, but if you do ever receive a notice, it's important to call that code enforcement officer. A lot of the times they will have their telephone numbers at the bottom of those forms so that you can call them and you can ask them the questions that you need. Look things up online, right? I call Google the wizard because you can Google anything nowadays and find the answer to it. Or consult someone who knows, like someone from the building department, right? You should, another important thing is verify that the address and the violation that was sent to you is correct. And of course, make sure that you review the compliance deadlines so that you know exactly when the issue needs to be resolved. Right. So I quickly just walked you through what you should do if you receive a code violation from the building department, right? So the next thing is if you're not sure how to make a complaint to the code enforcement department, right? So I mentioned that safe housing has to do with running water and electricity, things like that, right? So complaints can really consist of anything like temperatures in your home, right? So cities and state, there's city and state laws that have to be followed if you rent a home, right? And so one of those is the apartment, right, can't be less than 68 degrees between September 15th and May 31st, right? So if you have a thermometer in your home and the temperature does not meet those standards, right? So what do, right? How do you make that complaint? Another thing is property maintenance, right? So unsafe porches. If you have to go up and down your steps every day and they're falling apart or your porch is falling apart, right? And your landlord isn't addressing it, what do you do? So the best thing to do is to look up the building department number for your city and call to place a complaint or to just simply ask a question, right? So I added the link and I'm sure we'll be able to share this with everyone. In this link, you can find the numbers to all the departments within the different cities in Westchester that you can reach out to. And it's not always just to place a complaint. It could also be to ask questions, right? So again, I want to emphasize that piece of education. It's one of the biggest pieces to code enforcement and safe housing in our communities. It's being educated as to what is and what is not acceptable. So when you think about renting a home or an apartment, right, what are some of those things that you have to think of prior to doing so? And as silly as it might sound, right, we find that sometimes people don't think of these things, but it can be something as functioning bathrooms, right? Do all the bathrooms in the apartment work properly? that the roof over our head is going to be able to protect us from the elements outside, right? That every habitable room has at least one functioning window. These are things that we need to think of, and that if we find that the apartment or home that we're renting, we find that these things aren't in place, then the landlord is responsible for ensuring those safe living conditions within the apartment or our home, right? So I urge you to do your due diligence before you rent a home or an apartment, because it's really for safe living conditions. So then let's say you're already renting, right? Or you're a homeowner, and you want to know, what are you responsible for now, right? Because it's all about safe habits and practices that are going to keep us safe in our communities, right? So those can be things like not overloading our electrical wall outlets, right? That can cause fires. Avoiding the use of electrical cords that are longer than 6 feet, or keeping all of our exits in our homes clear from clutter, toys, and furniture. Right? These are things that are so simple that sometimes we don't think of them as being hazardous or dangerous for our to maintain safe homes, right? And so unsafe practices can really lead to unfortunate accidents in our homes and our apartments. So again, I urge you to look some of these things up, and I have a link there at the bottom, right, which is the tenant's rights. And if you go on there, you can find a multiple amount of information as to what your rights are as a tenant, and what you can do to address those issues, right? Because a lot of the times we're maybe sometimes afraid to come forward, right? Because we don't want to be displaced, or we're afraid of retaliation. But we really do have rights as a homeowner and as a renter. And so you want to make sure that you're informed of these rights, so that you're able to address any unsafe conditions in your household. Maintaining a really good relationship with your landlord is really an integral part of having a quality experience as a tenant, right? And this will make your life so much easier for any future housing needs and requests that you have, because you'll have that good relationship. And so again, right, there's basic rights that you have. If you're paying rent, one of those rights that we might not think of is you need to receive a receipt for proof of payments, right? There's protections in case of evictions, and there I have the eviction hotline from Legal Services of Hudson Valley, right, which right now is assisting families who have been impacted by COVID-19, right? And they're assisting with their services to avoid evictions, or to help through the process of evictions, right? Because we know there's the moratorium in place, but that will be lifted in January. And so what we want to do is get ahead of the game, so that we don't start to see families being evicted from their homes. And so again, I'm sure we can share that link with you guys. Take that number down. If you or anyone you know is possibly facing eviction, right, they're another great service that's there to help. Our goal in code enforcement is really to become aware of any concerns, inspect them, and resolve them, not to displace. And that's extremely important for everyone to understand. If you've ever been afraid to reach out for help, or just simply ask the questions, we're not there to displace people from their homes. We're there to assist to resolve issues in whatever best way we can. So what if you can't afford the repairs to your home, right? Code enforcement violations can sometimes come with serious fines, right? So you want to make sure that you address them. And so there is a multiple amount of resources within our cities to assist with that. One of those resources is the Community Development Block Grant, which is one of the longest running programs of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. and they fund local community development activities that that the stated goal is to provide affordable housing and anti-poverty programs. And the CD funds, right, they fund multiple programs such as the CARES Act, among others, like the disaster recovery program, right? And so through the CD fund, local governments are able to fund great programs, like if you need home repairs, right? Or preventive maintenance. For example, the city of White Plains has their rehab program, which has low interest and deferred loans available for eligible home repairs for income qualified households, right? And these things can be for you to be able to fix the heating, the plumbing, electrical work, carpentry in your home, right?
Yes, Cara?
Yes.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I have
okay.
to intervene. We're kind of running a little short on
No
time.
problem.
Your presentation is amazing, as was everyone's. And in fact, let me just simply state on behalf of the committee, this is really what you're presenting and what your colleagues have just presented is the meat and guts of why we do what we do. You know, so I don't want to make any statement that in any way diminishes what you have just shared with us, because I've just downloaded all of these amazing PDFs and everything. So, you know, we just need to segue over to Grandpas United for a moment, but I just wanted to thank you and thank everyone of Marlene and Judy and Andre for this incredible presentation. And I would hope that everyone would kind of stay with us for a bit, because I need to segue over to Grandpas United. And let me just set up a quick scenario with regard to the introductory speaker. Dr. Jim Eisenberg is the co-founder of Grandpas United, and he's going to give an overview and a history of it. But let me just say this personally about Jim, is that for those of you who have never met him, right, to meet him, you want more. You want more. I mean, he has heralded this cause of community, the people within the community. His background is extensive. And what he, along with Frank, the Youth Bureau, Deacon DeWitt Smith, and others have done has just been astounding with regard to Grandpas United. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jim. Oh, I'm sorry, Jim. I think you're muted, Jim.
Jim, you unmuted for a second and then you remuted. Just unmute again.
There you go.
You okay?
Yeah.
You all right?
You're good now.
All right. I want to thank Donnie certainly for facilitating today. But as a father, I know him, and I've been fortunate to work really closely with his son at the White Plains Library, and when he was there, and he was most helpful to with Grandpas United. I was honored to work with him and honored to know you as his father.
Thank you.
I know we're probably in terms of time, since I'm a grandpa, it's almost getting close to nap time, so I want to be move us along. And Grandpas United started 2 years ago. Frank Williams and I talked about the fact we were both grandpas. I was looking around to see if there was any kind of organization like Grandpas anywhere and couldn't find one. And Frank and I began Grandpas United. A number of grandpas came forward who wanted to continue to be involved in the community. I think I heard the word used here once today. There's a major effort across the country to be intergenerational, to bring our generations together. And Grandpas United is in many ways in the forefront of that. We've been very, very involved working with young people in the schools. We're involved working with the youth court to divert young people from juvenile justice system, the social service. And we've been very involved in collaborating with organizations across our community, including the library and the schools and White Plains Hospital and Rotary and others. So let me introduce, there are two grandpas who are with us today, Wayne Sobers and Dennis Cuddy. They both bring all kinds of talents to the community. Wayne and Dennis, I know we'll probably keep it short. So Donnie, we're sensitive to the whole organization, but let us introduce Grandpas United. And let me just say, in case I forget as an old guy, this whole thing started when a guy named Rich Leapson also wrote an article in the Journal News. He interviewed the idea about grandpas, and the whole headline was Gramps, Not Grumps. And a lot of people may think of that, but here's two grandpas who are definitely Gramps that are not grumps. So Wayne, why don't you take a few minutes, tell everybody a little bit about what Grandpas United has done. Okay, you all right, Donnie? You all right? Okay, cool. All right, Wayne. Matt, maybe you can get Wayne. He's over here.
I think Wayne's having some audio issues. He is unmuted, but there's a lot of feedback in his end.
Try again, Wayne. Okay, can we segue over to Dennis?
There we go, Dennis.
I think Wayne just has a bad connection.
That I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead, Dan.
I'm on.
You're on.
Okay. First, I want to sort of join the praise for Jim Eisenberg that Donnie was bestowing upon him. Jim has become a great friend of mine. We've both lived in White Plains for several years. And this program, he was the guy behind it, and it's just been great and going great. I want to tell you a little bit about my own experience. As Jim said, we've many initiatives that we've been involved in. And one that I want to mention to you was a program at Church Street School that went for 1 year and then a few months before the virus hit us. But this was where 5 or 6 grandpas twice a month on Fridays, we would go and have lunch with students at Church Street. And it was just great fun for us. I think it was fun for the students because they always won at the Connect 4 and Chutes and Ladders, but we had great conversations with them too. And that's the type of thing that we're trying to do. I would just like to emphasize one more thing, and that is that this group is not about, for us, for me at least, it's not only about doing programs with other people, whatever they may be involved in, but it's really for us as a learning experience in that things that we're learning from the people we're working with, but also the importance of men getting together and having conversations about these things. And that's been, friendships have developed. And that's really an important thing, I think, for the wellness of the men. And I think it's a big part of what we do. Jim, I'll stop there. I know you want to move on. But anybody out there who wants to, have a great time in a program where you don't have to make a huge commitment, come and join us.
Great. All right. Wayne, are you all right now? Can we hear you?
You're still muted, Wayne.
Wayne, you got to unmute.
No, there's some serious interference there.
Not happening. Well,
Yeah.
Let me just say a few things and then we'll turn it back to you. One, Grandpas United has about 50 or more grandpas involved here in White Plains, about 25, 30 very active. Wayne Sobers, who unfortunately we blamed the muting or whatever, has been a writer, has been an entrepreneur, has talked about leadership with young people, and has been a really key person. I think you can see him there. Wayne, give me a hello. All right. He's just first rate. We are now looking at how we may replicate grandpas across New York State, and hopefully we're going to work with Senator Mayer and Senator Stewart Cousins in terms of developing a model that involves grandfathers in their communities. We want to do more work directly with fathers in terms of developing a working relationship there. So replication is big. I would suggest, and we can let you know, you can look at the White Plains Youth Bureau website. There's a link to Grandpas United. One of the great things that we did, we had a talent show before the pandemic with young people from White Plains High School. There was a lot of talent in the, Joe Mosley was our choral director. Deacon DeWitt was, Smith was a leader of this. So we're very interested. On December 10th, we'll send out a note. We're having a community breakfast awards for grandpas who have made strong community contributions in the last year. Sadly, we had one last year at the Slater Center, had a down-home breakfast. If you like shrimp and grits, this was definitely the place to be. And we had some fantastic sausages. So that'll be online December 10th. We absolutely want to welcome new grandpas. This is a very diverse group of men, lots of things in common, and very, very powerful. And finally, I just want to thank you, Donnie, and all the people involved with the Fatherhood Initiative. Mayor Rainey, I hope we can invite you to coffee with Grandpa sometime. Thought it was a very powerful morning, and I want to thank you for including us.
You're welcome, Jim. It's been our pleasure to do so. And without further ado, I want to segue to Frank Williams for a moment for some closing thoughts, along with Tabidi Boone.
Frank, you muted. Frank, unmute.
Okay. There we go. I want to thank everyone for being a part of these 3 sessions. We started in October. We had a session in November, and this is our final session, but the work will continue. For we recognize that as we strengthen and build our fathers, we improve our communities. I'm going to ask Brother Tabidi Boone to say some words, and I'll come back to you. I want to acknowledge our community. Brother Boone is a national, can we unmute to Brother Boone, Tom, Matt? Brother Boone is a national fatherhood champion. He has been doing this work for years and years and years. He's still muted. Is there any way we can unmute him, Matt or Tom?
Hit S to unmute.
I'm sorry?
I clicked S to unmute.
Well,
this is unfortunate because we ran into this situation before.
So we're having some difficulty with Brother Boone. And we really wanted to hear from him because he was on our last call. There we go. Nope.
Try that again, Tabidi. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
I would say, bless his heart, Brother Boone is somebody really special. He's had the ear of former President Barack Obama. He still does have his ear. He's been a national spokesperson for Fatherhood Initiative. He's the author, he's a minister, he's a champion for fatherhood initiatives throughout the country. He's working with the NBA and Allen Houston. And so he is, and in fact, he is a Hall of Fame college, Hall of Fame person. He was inducted into the Westchester Community College Hall of Fame, and he's a fraternity brother. So we are blessed to have him. Just close us out and share some reflections, some remarks about what we've been trying to accomplish in Westchester County and New York State, putting a spotlight on the needs and issues of fatherhood. Brother Boone, take it away.
Thanks, Brother Williams, and good afternoon, everybody. As I was just listening to the 2 hours of just the presentations from the presenters, the great work that you all are doing in Westchester County, throughout the state of New York, and listening to the elected officials just share their commitment to this work. Is Barbara Andrews still on the line?
Yes.
I want to salute Barbara Andrews. I mean, I've been knowing Barbara for over 20 years, and she has been one of the just the heroes, of this work and movement. And Barbara was one of the ones that I first started working with in New York City around this work of fatherhood. I just want to share a couple of things from what I heard. The first thing is, with respect to President Obama, certainly when President Obama came on board, he was able to do several things to really lift up and amplify how important this work is and the value of our fathers. One, he was very transparent about the impact of not having his own father in his life and what that has meant to him as a young boy, as a young man, and how that continued to be a challenge for him, even as the president of the United States. And so for him to personalize his commitment to fatherhood as the president of the United States said a lot about the narrative that Mayor Rainey talked about and the narrative that we all have been striving to continue to uplift in a positive way. So not only that, and then to take on instituting a White House Fatherhood Mentoring Initiative that kind of galvanized the leaders, the leadership, and kind of just said to the country that we cannot move forward without the role of our fathers, and to make sure that fathers have resources and services and everything that they need to be the best dads that they can be. And certainly with the presentation that you guys had today, certainly demonstrates what President Obama wanted to envision around how do we have wraparound services and resources to uplift our fathers, and how that impacts, our county, whether it's, Westchester County or throughout, the country. So one of the things that I've been working on with some of the former staffers with Obama is how can we get President-elect Biden to take on this continued commitment of the work of fatherhood under his administration. Biden played a big role supporting the president. Biden was there every step of the way with the Fatherhood Mentoring Initiative, as well as the My Brother's Keeper Initiative. Biden has spoken over and over again about his journey of being a father and even a single parent dad after the death of his first wife, and the relationship he had with his late son, Bo, who is the state attorney general for the state of Delaware. So if we can get Biden to revitalize the energy of the White House around this work, I think it will be a tremendous for us to keep pushing fatherhood forward. The other thing about this narrative that we keep talking about, one of the things we need to really look at is we need new research. We keep relying on the old research of what fathers are not doing and what they need to do. So we have to look at that deficit model, if you will, and start looking at, well, what has happened in the last 10, 15, 20 years in the state of fatherhood. And what I've seen across this country from my position and the work that you all clearly are seeing is that we have seen the fact that fathers have been stepping up. They've been willing to play their part. They've been doing all they can in terms of employment, child support, engaging with their kids, doing all that they can. And I just think we need research that really speaks to that narrative, and so that it can kind of keep us going in that direction. The other thing I want to mention in terms of the narrative and the work that we're doing, we have to do a little bit more to engage the moms. And what I mean by that is, and I'll close out on this, what I mean by that is we have this assumption that moms are responsible, they got it together, they got it straight. And we just got to get fathers straight. But the challenge in that is that I still have worked with fathers and seen in conversations that no matter how much fathers have strived and worked hard, they're still facing barriers where sometimes the mothers or society and certain institutions still have this hesitation in terms of embracing and empowering fathers, and so I just think that we need to make sure that we're including moms in our programs, our resources, our services. We need to make sure that we're still including our institutions in terms of embracing fathers and the work that they'll be doing. And we need to make sure, first and foremost, is to continue to have the funding streams and resources so that we can continue to service. The work that you all are doing in Westchester County, as I travel this country, I'm still not seeing a lot of mayors, a lot of elected officials, a lot of communities are still not working with fathers as effectively as you all are doing. So I just think that we need to look at just some key areas of how do we continue to push this work forward? How do we continue to amplify that we do have fathers stepping up more than ever before? And the fact that we need to continue to have a country that embraces fathers, and to know that we cannot move fathers forward without having the support that they need. So I just want to end on that by saying what you guys are doing is a model for the rest of us across this country. And let's continue to push forward. I'm going to continue to do my part, and let's continue to make that happen. And the last thing I want to say about this Grandpas United, I tell you, man, that is a platform that is so critical because, see, grandfathers represent legacy of fatherhood. It represents how do we continue to break the barriers generationally. So now we're not just looking at the role of fathers, now we're looking at the continued role of those grandfathers. And I am a new young grandfather. And so I just think that this work that we're doing is so tremendous. And again, Brother Williams, the great leadership that you're doing, and everybody else in Westchester County, I applaud you guys. And again, let's just continue to just push this work forward, and let's keep striving to know that, you know, fathers matter, they have value, they are important in the work that we're doing. So I just want to close out on that.
Thank you, Brother Bruin. And we appreciate your leadership and your legacy and what you mean to all of us, and the work as we embrace fathers and families throughout our country and in our nation. I want to give, thank you again, Brother Boone. I want to give Jerry Shapiro a shout out. When we first started the Fatherhood Initiative, she was there on the ground floor. She had been working with Senator Gillibrand and her administration. So I just wanted to say to her, we thank her for laying this foundation, and this work continues. So thanks again, Jerry. And thanks for being on the call and being with us for more than 2 hours this morning. I just want to name the committee members, and then we're going to talk about the survey. We want you to give us feedback as we plan future programs and projects. So the members of this Fatherhood Planning Conference Committee are Bob Stein. Raise your hand, Bob. Donnie Simmons, of course, you've heard Donnie. He's done a great job this morning. Barbara Andrews. Raise your hand, Barbara. Donna Linder. Donna, raise your hand. Donna's with us. Andre G. Early. Andre is a part of our Fatherhood Planning Initiative. Tom Kelly. Matt Spranger. Wayne Woodbury. Deacon DeWitt Smith. Tuesday McDonald. Donovan Beckford. Right there we go, Donovan. Troy Deckham from the Westchester County. I want to give the county executive and Kevin McGuire, the commissioner of DSS, their applause and kudos for helping to make this program a success. Ed Lawson, Ernest McFadden, Reverend Erwin Trollinger. Reverend Trollinger, thank you also. Debbie Burrell and Scott Leach. I hope I didn't leave anyone out. Again, we want to thank all of you for being a part of this. We're going to be planning more programs and projects in the next weeks and months with the hopes of empowering and encouraging and supporting our community and putting spotlights on our children, youth, families, and especially our fathers. I'm going to ask Tom and Matt to come and talk a little bit about the survey. We need your feedback. We need information. And of course, Brother Boone said it well, we need more research. We've been working on a deficit model for years. We need a strength-based model. We need to acknowledge the good work that communities all over the country is doing with respect to fathers and families. We need new data. We need new information. We need to be proactive in terms of telling the true story about fathers and families are succeeding. So Tom and Matt, if you could just come in again about the survey material, and then we'll go forward.
Sure. So there's a survey that Matt has put in the chat. If you go in there, it's very short, and what it does is it gives us an idea about what issues and topics you'd like to see in the future. Just personally, we started meeting about these 3 segments of this conference several months ago, and today is kind of a acknowledgement about how powerful this journey has been. The 2 hours couldn't contain the amazing content that went on today. And so we've been talking about like Scott Leach and his partners were talking about using Zoom to break down the idea that we have to have one conference a year in a physical location. So we have things in the works. And I mean, Frank, I might be stepping out of bounds, but can we sign Tabidi up to be the keynote speaker of the first, maybe the January conference if he has time? Because holy Toledo, we are gaining steam throughout this end of the year, and there's no reason why to kind of put it down. Like that, the urgency that all the speakers were speaking with today about this is it, this is the time. I'm feeling it, and I'm gonna send it back to you. But there's so much potential and so much traction and help we can do for people. So.
Well, I think you're right. And I think that Brother Boone, who is family and he's an activist as well, and he's passionate about the work that we're doing to lift up our children and our fathers. We will reach out to Brother Boone and see if he has some holes in his calendar where he could come and share with us, our community, about the issues and concerns that we're all facing in terms of building a better community. So we'll reach out to Brother Boone and see if he has sometime in his calendar that he could continue the work that we're all doing. Again, I see Mayor Rainey's there. We want to just again thank Mayor Rainey. Thank you so much for a wonderful, wonderful presentation. Let's all give Mayor Rainey a big hand, please.
Thank you sincerely.
Any closing remarks, Mayor Rainey, that you want to share with our group?
Listen, I just want to say I'm happy to be a part of this. Keep up the good work. You know, God bless you all. Continue social distancing and wearing your mask. And if I can do anything in my capacity to push forward this agenda and support our fathers and any initiatives that you guys are working on, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I put my email in the chat as well. Anyone and everyone can email me. I would love to get emails from you rather than some of the emails I get anyway. So please don't hesitate to reach out.
And again, thanks, Mayor Rainey. And Brother Boone said it well. We have many of our mayors engaged in Westchester County with this effort, but we need to bring it back to the White House under President-elect Biden so that he can make sure that he has fatherhood and My Brother's Keepers and all of these efforts as a part of his administration. So we're going to be pushing this forward. Thank you for that, Brother Boone. Again, we want to thank you all for being a part of this 6th annual conference. We want to thank Judy and Yakara and Marlene and Scott and all of our presenters for doing a great job in this presentation. Thank you, Dunny, for hosting this, being the MC for this. And we celebrate you all, and we'll get back to you pretty soon because we want to roll out Brother Boone with something that we'll plan for the near future. Again, thank you for being a part of this. Please check the survey and make your comments and remarks so that we can assess and evaluate what our next steps are. Thank you again, and have a great, great Saturday afternoon and evening. Thank you.
You all.